From the burning mesas of the Arizona desert to the slot machine-clad boardwalks of New Jersey, it's the Imaginarium with Scott and Todd. I'm Scott Colbert.
I'm the horror nerd, Todd Staruch.
And Todd, you told me before we started recording that you have 5 inches of snow.
I do, and it's a solid 5 inches, too.
Hard-packed?
It is hard-packed and heavy.
Well, stay warm and stay safe. That's a pretty nasty storm from what I hear.
It was, and the crazy thing is, yesterday it was 60 degrees. Today it's snowed, and it is now about 22 degrees. But climate change is a myth.
Well, it's supposed to be. It was 80 degrees here today, and in the weekend it's going to be 60. So go figure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's no such thing as climate change.
Not at all.
No. So, all right. Well, we're going to forego our usual rounds of bullshit this week because we have, and I really have to apologize for this because I've had everybody on Imaginarium pretty much. I mean, I had Abe, I had Ronnie James Dio. I had I Am Better. Christ, I even had Asimov Lives on the show. Shows you how desperate I was in the beginning. But I have never had Detective D. And I am really, I feel bad about that because he's asked me to do several podcasts with him, and I have never had him on the Imaginarium, and I thought I had. So, that's what happens when you kind of get older. You start remembering things that never happened. If that makes sense. Well, it makes sense to me. Anyway, welcome to the Imaginarium Detective Day.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
And, D really is all the muscle and brawn behind the Supernauts website. I'm just a pretty face, but D does all the heavy lifting, and the site really would not be what it is without him. So I always thank him for that, and now I get the chance to say it over Skype.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So how are you doing, D?
Yeah, I'm fine.
How's the weather there?
Yeah, I couldn't make sense of any of the numbers you have there.
Yeah.
We are sensory with the metric system, so it's like minus 4 degrees. So yeah, it's very cold, but we don't have snow at the moment.
Oh wow, I'm surprised at that.
Thankful. Snow is awful in the city here. It's awful.
I'm sure. All right, well, we are going to be talking about some of our favorite horror movies that aren't part of a franchise.
Yes.
And this was actually a lot harder for me than I thought because I was thinking about, the first movie that came to my mind was, The Exorcist. And I thought, well, no, that's had sequels. And then I thought, maybe the Amityville Horror, because I just saw the original James Brolin a couple of weeks ago. And no, that's had sequels. So I really kind of had to think about this. This wasn't nearly as easy as I thought it was going to be.
No, not at all. No, it wasn't.
So I had the opposite problem because I came up with a lot of non-franchise horror movies that I like. So I had the actual opposite problem, believe it or not.
Well, smell you. Aren't you special?
Then again, I know a lot of obscure horror movies that no one has ever heard of and no one should ever watch. So,
it's funny. Dee messaged me yesterday and said, "Should we go over, all the movies that we're going to have on our list so we don't repeat anything?" And knowing his taste in movies and knowing your taste and knowing my taste, I think I'd be very surprised if any of us overlapped on anything.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm curious. I'm curious.
All right, well, since you are the guest, Dee, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Yeah, okay. My number 5 is maybe a more well-known one. It's Jacob's Ladder by Adrian Lyne with Tim Robbins and Elizabeth Benyer. Yeah, I think this is a horror movie that was maybe more influential than we maybe think, than maybe as it is known in itself, you know what I mean? The movie, as it is famous. I think had a big influence on very much on Silent Hill, the horror games. It was one of the first examples that you would call a designer horror movie, as it was sometimes called, like sometimes derogatory. So it's a very stylish movie. It's like almost an MTV music video like cut movie, but yeah, it's very phenomenal. You know, this certain effect you see often in horror movies. There's someone on the head is jerking very fast, and fast forward. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The head is moving. This is from this movie. This one was the very first movie that used it. Or that other shot of a wheel of a bed in a hospital, and you see they're pushing the bed through the hallway, and you see the wheel at the center of the screen. Yeah, this was also one of the very first movies that used this kind of shot. That is very common nowadays. Yeah, great movie. Maybe the plot is about Tim Robbins, who is a Vietnam veteran, and he has this kind of strange visions. We don't know. Is there something really supernatural, almost like Lovecraft-like visions, partly with tentacle monsters and all of that kind? And is it just an effect of the drugs he took during Vietnam? He was forced to take by the government during the Vietnam War. We don't know. It's a great movie.
It is. Go ahead, Todd.
No, I was just going to agree. That's a good choice right there. And Scott and I joke about spoilers all the time. That movie came out, 20 something years ago. Yeah. So I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I'm just going to say I'm usually pretty good at predicting things, but I really didn't see that ending coming. No. Which made it that much more effective.
Maybe also the structure was something new. You know what I mean? Or not new, but in this scope of a movie, it was something new. Yes, it's with flashbacks and all that stuff. Yes.
Yeah, excellent.
It is. It's a very good movie, and it was written by Bruce Joel Rubin, who also wrote What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams. Mm-hmm. And it's a very smart script, Jacob's Ladder. And I remember seeing that and just being very taken aback by it. And even today, it still holds up. And it's still probably one of them, even though people who are fans of the channel will talk about Jacob's Ladder, and it'll always end up on somebody's all-time best list or whatever the case might be. I still kind of feel it's underrated, and it's a shame. And I really think people need to check this one out a lot more than what it has been. It's a good one.
I think the look is also very influential on movies like Saw, for example, design-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Todd, what's your first or your fifth?
All right. Well, I tend not to really put them in any kind of an order. I always have a hard time with that. But so I'll guess my number 5 is it's a kind of a quirky. It's an offbeat film. You guys will know what it is, but a little bit off the beaten path, and it's from 2002 by Lucky McKee, May, with Angela Bettis. Mm-hmm. I always love this movie. I'm a fan of psychological horror and sort of like outcast characters. And this one, it's sort of combined a little bit of Carrie, a little bit of Frankenstein, sort of just mixing genres, but also just the story of someone who's just trying to fit in and is an outcast and goes about fitting in a very horrific way. And when I met Angela Bettis at a horror convention a couple of years after the movie came out, and the only thing I could think to say to her was, wow, you look exactly like you did in the movie. And she looked at me and said, well, I'm going to choose to take that as a compliment. And I said, well, thanks for not calling security. But I really did mean it as a compliment because she's so quiet and unassuming, and then the violence that comes about in the movie comes as that much more of a shock. And that from that moment, I was a fan of Lucky McKee. I was surprised at the time when I, realized that was his directorial debut. And, for him to write and direct a movie that was not, a big movie, but was that effective, I was just impressed by it. So, that's my first non-franchise. One of my favorites is May.
I have never seen it.
Well, then we can't be friends anymore.
As a matter of fact, I hate to say it, but I hadn't heard of it until you just mentioned it.
Oh, my mind. Okay.
It's possible it's one of those things that I had heard of it, and I just don't remember. But I think I would have remembered this for some reason. But I've got this on my list now to watch.
Well, there you go. My work here is done. Goodbye.
Have you seen it, Dave?
To my shame, I haven't seen it either. I'm fully aware of this movie, but I never came around. Although I really like Lucky McKee, actually. I like The Woods. That's a great one, too. I should. I'm putting this on my list, yes.
Okay, well, good to know.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's one of those movies I'm fully aware of, but never seen them.
It's okay. I have a lot of those.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised he hadn't seen that one. So, well, my number 5 was the first one that I actually put on the list that I thought of that didn't have any kind of a sequel to it. And it's based on a novel by Peter Straub, and it's the 1981 underrated classic Ghost Story.
Oh, yes.
That's a good one, yes.
Yes, it has probably one of the great cast of old farts in any movie that you possibly see. Fred Astaire, Melvin Douglas, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., John Houseman, and who all have a combined age of about 972 for when this movie was released. Yeah. The book is a little bit more complicated than what the movie is. And for those who haven't seen it, check it out. It's a really good ghost story. I don't want to give anything away because I watched it not that long ago, or maybe like 6 months ago or something like that. And it still holds up. And it's still really pretty creepy, pretty scary. And it's my favorite ghost story type movie. So that's mine.
Yeah. What I like about it is that it's a little bit more nasty than the average ghost movie.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, with special effects and with a little bit of more of a nasty ghost, not just some soul that doesn't get rest or something.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
She's
something
she's
I really.
vengeful.
Yeah.
And the script was by Lawrence Cohen, who also did the script for It and Carrie and a few other movies. He also did Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. The Martin Scorsese movie. And he's one of my favorite screenwriters, too. So.
Cool, that is a good one. We talked about that one on the show once before, if I recall.
Yeah, we have. And I've mentioned it also, I believe, on Weekday Matinee. And, this is the problem that I'm getting into when we start talking about movies, because I try to pick movies now that not only do I think are off the beaten track picks that people may not be familiar with, but I also have to figure out and try and remember if I've talked about them on one of the other podcasts. So I don't bore people with the same movies all the time.
Yeah.
It's a heavy responsibility. Jesus. I buckle under the pressure. I read myself to sleep at night over it.
You were looking for a reason.
Yes, as if I needed one. All right, what's your next one, D?
I'm going with Phenomena by my favorite horror director, Dario Argento.
Ooh.
It's from 1985 with a very young Jennifer Connelly. It has a similar premise as Suspiria a little. It's also, again, about a girl who goes to a boarding school in Switzerland. Is sent to a boarding school in Switzerland. And it plays out differently, though. I cannot really sum up the plot. She has the power to control insects, and then she is apparently killing people in her sleep, probably. There's also another serial killer going around. Then there is Donald Pleasance as a forensic scientist who has a knife-wielding chimpanzee. Yeah, I don't know if that doesn't sell you the movie. It's a great movie. It's a very bizarre, very surreal almost movie. I think it's underrated in the oeuvre of Dario Argento a little. It's a little in the shadow of Suspiria. Actually, it's a very unique, very great horror movie. Great atmosphere, great special effects, and there are really some very nasty bits. There's a scene at the end when Jennifer Connelly gets tossed into a little pool with water and filled with remains of humans and thousands of really live maggots. It's a very nasty scene. So yeah, I always wondered about Jennifer Connelly when I'm watching her old movies, how traumatized she must be from those movies, from being tossed into live maggots and David Bowie's crotch. So yeah, that's a great one. Have you seen it?
I have not.
You really, really have to. It's also an impeccably made movie from a craftsmanship point of view. This isn't. I don't think a horror movie has to be perfect, but if there is one that is, that's something special. Yes, I think that's not usual.
The sad thing is, Scott, when you go to see it, make sure you get there was a full version that was released in 2011 on Blu-ray. Most people only know this movie from the U.S. release, which was called Creepers.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They hacked like 32 minutes of footage from the original version because, of course, U.S. audiences can't handle gore or violence.
Yeah.
So and the movie, I mean, it's an oddball, like Dee said, it's an oddball movie to begin with, but with that much footage missing, it's really hard to follow. You got to find the full version if you want to watch it. They did that with so many of Argento's movies. The U.S. release is just hacked to death. So
I don't think they actually really understood the genre that he worked in. I think they had a hard time trying to figure out what the hell it was.
Yeah, it's really too bad. Like so many of the U.S. DVD releases of European horror movies were just chopped to bits. It's really a shame.
Yeah, and the dubs. There are some really bad dubs out there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they can be amusing in their own right, of course. But
yeah, well, again, U.S. audiences, especially today, are too lazy to read subtitles.
Yeah.
Me, I don't care. I want the original uncut movie.
Yeah, I do too. I prefer subtitles simply because when you get it dubbed, as Dee said, it's laughable and it really takes away from the movie.
Yeah, but I gotta say here, I think the German-speaking area is actually even worse than the US area. We have everything dubbed. Yeah, that's not a joke. They even dubbed porn till the end of the 90s. Porn movies. Yeah. So it's not. That's maybe not just the American phenomenon. Yeah.
What's your next one, Todd?
All right, my next one is going to be the movie that launched my love of grindhouse and exploitation films, and that's Maniac. Maniac with Joe Spinell, directed by William Lustig. I made an assumption that remakes didn't count as franchise, making a film of franchise, and I decided I didn't care because I like this movie so much. And it's also one of the few remakes that I thought was really, really good. And Maniac is one of my favorite slasher and exploitation films. So when I heard it was going to be remade, I groaned. I was like, "Oh God, just kill me now!" But it was actually really good. Elijah Wood did a really good job, I thought. It still can't touch the original for me because it reminds me of Times Square when it was still Times Square, and it was just gritty and disgusting and sleazy. But just it's a fairly simple story, but they don't hold back. Bill Lustig didn't hold back on any of the violence, and it's very shocking and gory for its time. But it really is the definition of like a grindhouse type exploitation film. It really makes you want to take a shower after you see it, and that is my kind of movie. One that just makes me feel like, oh God, I really need to wash up after that. But yep, that's my next one is Maniac.
I almost put that on my list. But I was actually going to put the remake on it because I like the remake a little bit more than I like the original.
Right? You're not the only person to say that, and it's probably the only time I wouldn't punch somebody for saying that.
Well, if you remember the guys behind the Turnpike Killer, Evan and
Brian.
They had a really nice story about the remake of Maniac and going to, what was it, the premiere of it in New York?
Yeah.
And meeting Elijah Wood, who's really a big horror fan, which I think really, really helps. And they were, the biggest Maniac and Joe Spinell fans in the world. And so when they were giving a lot of praise to the remake and to Elijah Wood, that's when you know that a remake is worth its salt.
Yeah, it's a good one, and Scott, I'm not nearly as militant about remakes as most people are. It's either if they do a remake, it's either going to be good or it's not.
Yeah. Well, here's another one that had a remake that I enjoyed as much as the original. Whether it's better or even good is, I suppose, up for debate. But mine is the original Cat People.
Ah, good. Oh, good one.
I haven't seen the original from the 40s, right?
Yeah, 1942, I believe it was. And they usually reference it as Val Lundgren's Cat People, but all he did was produce it. It was directed by Jacques Tournier, or Tournier. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce his last name. And it's just, when you talk about classic horror movies, and when you talk about classic black and white movies specifically, Cat People is one of perfect examples of it. And it's beautifully shot. It's well acted, well directed. It's creepy, and it's one of those movies that's timeless for the most part. There were some definite 40s idiosyncrasies in it, but even aside from that, it's well worth seeing. And the remake that they did in the early 80s with was it Nastasius Kinski? I thought was really good too. That was done by Paul Schrader, so of course it had a lot more blood and sex in it. And I would recommend seeing the remake after seeing the original. That they're almost two completely different movies.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I only know the remake, to be honest.
Well, you can find Cat People online.
Yeah.
The original. Yeah. And it's short. It's like 75 minutes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So. All right, what do you have next, Dee?
My number 3 is Clive Barker's second best directorial effort, Nightbreed, from 1990.
Cool.
With Craig Sheffer. Very underrated movie too. Actually, I haven't seen these movies like, maybe first time I saw it was like 10 years ago or something. I was aware of the name, but haven't seen it before. I was actually really blown away. I think what Clive Barker's strength is, he isn't afraid of going epic in a horror movie, which isn't usually either. Most horror movies are small, intimate movies. But this has actually a pretty epic scope, very bordering on fantasy. Actually, it's partly closer to fantasy than to horror. And it's a great movie all around, great mythology. Of course, I mean, one of the best castings ever in a horror movie, with David Cronenberg, the director, as a serial killer. You can see at some points, you can see in the movie that it was a rushed production, a troubled production, that they had some budget cuts. You can really see that. But overall, it's a great movie with a great message. Also, about being an outsider in society. And also, quite violent movie, but that's to be expected by Clive Barker, of course. I also read the book, so I think also Clive Barker is one of the few artists who has the luxury to adapt his own books, but also has the disadvantage that he can never complain about the adaptation.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now, have you seen the extended cut?
No, I haven't. I haven't been able to get a hold of it.
Well, if you get a chance to check it out, I thought that I was going to like it a lot more, but I actually find the theatrical cut to be a little bit more satisfying for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion.
I read a very interesting interview with Clive Barker. He said that the character of David Cronenberg, who plays, I think I can spoil it. He plays a psychotherapist who is actually a serial killer, right?
Yeah.
That this was some kind of criticism or answer to the slasher movies of the 80s, because Clive Barker always felt that they were glorifying serial killers, and this was the answer. He wanted to show the banality of evil, kind of. So this was supposed to be the anti-slasher movie, in a certain kind, yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Have you seen the uncut version, or the director's version, I should say?
I have. I actually saw it. There was a convention here. There is a convention here called Monster Mania. And a few years ago, they had Ann Bobby as a guest, and in conjunction with her, appearing as a guest, they showed a midnight screening of the alternate cut of the film. I think they called it the Cabal cut of the film. So It was pretty cool, to see it in that setting. I don't like it more or less than the theatrical version. It's just different.
Yeah.
So I really can't, it's not better or worse, if you ask me. But it was pretty cool to see it there and then, listen to her speak about making the film and stuff. So that's the main reason I went to see it, was just to hear her talk about it.
Interesting.
It was fun, yeah.
Okay. All right, what you got next, Todd?
All right. This movie, like, people either like it or they don't. There doesn't seem to be any middle ground, but 1976, Burnt Offerings.
Oh,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite haunted house movies. You can't go wrong with Karen Black, in a scary movie. You've got Oliver Reed, Betty Davis, Burgess Meredith, Eileen Heckert. Well, I mean, what do you want, And again, I just like haunted house movies. Some people say it's boring, that nothing really happens. It's predictable, but I like it. I think it's a simple yet pretty original plot. Great cast, great acting. You go back and watch it now, I think it's still pretty effective, I think the soundtrack is really creepy, There's sort of a music box theme that plays a few times in the movie that is really, really creepy. I have a weird thing about music boxes. I don't like them.
I don't like them either.
Right? Okay, good. There. I'm not the only one.
No,
okay.
You're not.
Excellent. Especially if they play like some random creepy tune, that you can't identify. So yeah, just good atmosphere. The house itself is very much a character, in the film, and I just like it's a great old haunted house movie.
Yeah. I think that was really something new, that the house was shown as a living entity.
Yeah.
It was something as an organic entity, that it renewed itself in the end. I think that was something new. And yeah, it's just fun, seeing Oliver Reed and Black competing for chewing the scenery.
Yeah.
It's just a big fan.
Yeah.
Also this character of the driver was pretty creepy, of the guy with the sunglasses.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love this movie too. Yeah, it's great.
And that was about the time Betty Davis just said, "You know what? Fuck it, I'll be in anything."
Right. Right.
Yeah. That is a good choice. It got really savage reviews when it came out, but I guess maybe part of it's just nostalgia, but I do enjoy that. I enjoy that movie a lot too. I really do like haunted house movies. I really, really do.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, and apropos of nothing, but this is on TV, so I figured I would mention this. Todd, Tony Orlando is going to be playing here in Phoenix at one of the Indian casinos.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because I know you and Tony are buddies now.
Oh, yeah, we are.
In fact, you're going to be one of Dawn, aren't you? You can be one of his backup singers.
Yeah, who would notice?
Just slap a wig on and you're good to go. Well, my next movie is kind of similar to Burnt Offerings. It's a haunted house movie, and it's from 1979 or 1980, and it's The Changeling with George C. Scott.
Oh, yeah.
This is another movie that's all about atmosphere. There's very little blood or violence in it. It's just creepy as fuck. And it has one of the creepiest wheelchairs moving by itself that I've ever seen. And I don't know what it is about that specific wheelchair, but it gave me nightmares after I saw it. And, George C. Scott gives a great performance, as always. He's one of those actors like Martin Sheen or Tom Hanks that I can watch in anything. Or Chris Walken. I'll watch him in anything, no questions asked. Even if it's a bad movie, I can still enjoy their performance. And fortunately, with The Changeling, it's a really, really good movie. Another underrated movie.
That's a great movie.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Also, very well shot movie. Very visually very exciting movie, I think.
Well, it is, and you don't necessarily expect that from a haunted house movie, but everything about it is just so well done, from the score to the directing to the photography to the acting. It's just a hell of a good movie.
Also, another movie, as Todd said in the beginning, I couldn't predict the ending of.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Have you seen it, Todd?
Oh, of course. I mean, I'm a huge George C. Scott fan. The horror movies that he did, I loved him, The Changeling. I liked him in Exorcist 3.
Yeah.
So I was just a fan of all the horror movies that he did. And again, just, anything that has to do with ghosts. I'm a fan.
Same here. All right, what's your number 4, D?
So my number 4 or number 2.
Or number 2, yeah.
Whatever. is a movie called, it has 2 titles. It's Communion, also known as Alice, Sweet Alice, directed by Alfred Soule from 1976. It has a very young Brooke Shields as a kid, but only in the first, she dies, I think I can spoil it. She dies in the first 5 minutes. So it's during her communion, and whole story revolves around her murder. She has a sister, and the sister is maybe kind of a disturbed girl, you could say. She runs around in the house with one of those creepy translucent plastic mask that has the features painted on. You know what I mean? And raincoat. So this is a very striking image already. And of course, the question of the movie is her sister the murderer, or is it someone else in this house? And the director didn't direct a lot of movies. He was actually a production designer, and you can see it in the movie. It has a gorgeous production design. And while this movie is very beautiful, it's also like it's really the aesthetic it's very much based on decay. It's like the beauty of decay. Everything is a little grimy, a little gritty, a little beautiful, but at the same time very ugly. What is special about this movie is also that it was made in 1976 and it takes place in 1962 or something. So there's a bit of a retro touch there, an intentional retro touch. I think what was something very new back then and very unusual. It has influences from the Italian horror movies. So there's a bit of a giallo vibe. Bit of like, this killer theme, and there's a bit of an subtext about Catholicism, and this is very Italian. Also, great child actress. Her name was Paula E. Shepard. She only played in a few movies, but she's a very great child actress. It's actually also a very complex movie, you could say, from the characterization or something. It's nothing is black and white. It's all morally a gray zone. Very creepy at times. It's you have to check it out. This is a great movie. Yes. So lots of symbolism, lots of very well composed scenes. Also some great POV shots in this movie. Yeah. I can only recommend it.
Yeah, that was called Alice, Sweet Alice here in the States.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it was. Yeah.
And you're right. That is a very good movie. And I had to look it up because I knew the plot, but I didn't know it by that name, so I had to
Also, movie.
IMDb that one.
Yeah. It's also a movie I have seen first time only 10 years ago or something. I discovered it on DVD. I was blown away. It was really by accident. It was just a blind buy. Yes. Have you seen it, Todd?
I have. Yeah, I like it. I like it very much. In fact, Scott knows I'm big on lists. And a few years ago, the Bravo Network did the 100 scariest movie moments, and one of them was there's a scene where the Alice character scares the other character Karen in a warehouse.
Yeah,
and that was rated one of the 100 scariest movie moments of all time.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it is a scary movie. It's set in Paterson, New Jersey, as a matter of fact, which is not far from where I live.
Mm.
So just a little movie trivia. I know you guys are itching to know that.
Is it a very Catholic
Yes.
group of people there? Okay.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, New Jersey, for the most part, is mostly European, immigrants. So yeah, very, very Catholic. I don't know about now, times have changed, since the movie, but, yeah, again, just a little bit of trivia.
Mm.
You're like, great. Whatever.
Very little bit.
Yeah, very little.
All right, what you get next, Todd?
Okay, this, film probably triggered my intense hatred for ventriloquist dummies.
Oh, I know which one it is.
You know what I'm going to say, right?
Yep.
Magic, 1978 with Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
To this day, I cannot tolerate ventriloquist dummies. I mean, they always are creepy. Like, they just are. But this movie broke me. I mean, it just absolutely, as far as, ventriloquist dummies, it was just, I guess, just the final straw. But it's just a really, really good, psychological film. And, and then just how it becomes blurred to the point where you're thinking, well, wait. Is the doll actually real? Like, is it really alive? Is it not? And it's never really resolved,
Yeah.
But I always felt like maybe especially because of the end. But then I said, no, you know what? It really is not set up that way. And I don't think it was intended that the doll would be real. But I like the fact that it makes you really think about it, Again, good cast, Anthony Hopkins and Margaret Burgess Meredith, David Ogden Stiers, and the music by Jerry Goldsmith is really, really creepy. Again, and I don't know why I watched this movie. I really don't. Because I hate it. And I love it at the same time. I hate it because I know I won't sleep for 3 days, when I see it. But, I know that some people felt like Anthony Hopkins, wasn't really great in the movie, but I like it. And again, it was one of the few horror movies that actually really did scare me. To the point where I'm like, there are not enough lights on in this house right now. I need a few more. But, yep, that's my next one.
See, now I had a ventriloquist dummy growing up. I liked them growing up. And I liked listening to the old Edgar Berg and Charlie McCarthy radio shows that my grandmother had introduced me to. She had them on, then I think she may have had them on 78s or something like that. So I like the idea of and the concept of ventriloquism. And then, of course, there was Howdy Doody, which I saw old clips of, although he was a marionette more than anything else.
But still effing creepy as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, absolutely. He was a creepy-looking fucker.
And that was supposed to be a goddamn kid's show.
Yeah. And if anybody was a pedophile, it was Clarabelle.
Absolutely.
She just looked like a...
oh, God.
But the Howdy Doody, that was the ventriloquist dummy that I had, was a Howdy Doody dummy. I wanted a Charlie McCarthy dummy, but they were out of them, so I got stuck with Howdy Doody, which was fine, because I liked it, and I played with it, and I did a little ventriloquism, or tried to anyway back then. But then, I saw that movie, Magic, and that was pretty much it for enjoying ventriloquism anymore. And, and there were a couple of other ventriloquist type, was it a Tales from the Dark Side, I think, or...
Tales from the Crypt, there was an episode.
Tales from the Crypt with Don Rickles. Yeah.
Yes.
That was really, really fucking creepy, too. So, yeah, that's a good choice.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, so my next one is I'm going back into the vault again. And I think this is probably going to be the first movie that really caused a lot of controversy. And it's the Todd Browning movie Freaks.
Oh, yeah.
And even today, and it's available on YouTube and other places, even watching it today, it still gives me very... it makes me very, very uneasy. And especially when they start doing the chanting at the end of it. And it's just...
Google
and then,
gobble.
Gobble, gobble, yeah.
Yeah.
One of us, gobble, gobble, one of us. I hear that in my nightmares. It's well shot. It's well directed. It uses real freaks, which I think obviously is one of the things that bothers me the most. But the relationship between the shortest man in the world and one of the and the protagonist, that little guy was such a fucking pervert. Right? He really was. He was a dirty little guy, and he was just fucking around with everybody. It didn't matter that he was married. And any port in a storm for him. But it's just one of those movies that it may not have to be in your collection, but it certainly is something that if you consider yourself to be a horror fan, that you have to see at least once. And I've seen it several times, and it doesn't lose its power of disturbing me.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Dan? Have you seen it?
Yeah, but some time ago, I have to admit, yes, it has been some time, but I have seen it, yes.
You need to check it out again.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Okay, what's your number one?
I go with a movie called The Sentinel from 1977.
Oh, yeah.
Also a very underrated movie, directed by Michael Winner. So you have the plot. It's plays a little like Rosemary's Baby, maybe in the beginning, but I think it's concerning atmosphere and the way it develops. It's a very different movie. It's kind of different also from the other typical movies about Satanism from the 1970s and about it uses Catholic beliefs also more like a mythology. It's different than like in The Omen. It's a little less sensationalist than The Omen or maybe The Exorcist. And yeah, it's one of these movies. I think many people will also say not a lot of stuff happens in this movie. Maybe as partly true, but I was actually I think it's a very gripping movie. mostly builds on atmosphere of dread. There's some really great kind of nightmare sequences that are almost like David Lynch style.
Mm-hmm.
It's also very well-made movie. I think it's also very interesting that Michael Winner made this movie, the guy who did the Death Wish, the first two Death Wish movies.
Yeah.
I think because maybe this is a bit of a cliche, but I think it's great how he the way he tells the story from the perspective of the main character, from a female perspective. If you watch Rosemary's Baby, you can see a little through that Polanski actually he enjoyed to torture his main character a little. I think you can feel he goes off a little with showing the misery of Rosemary, right? And in this movie, it's just a little. I think it's a bit of more female perspective, and this is very interesting. And it's a little more empathic towards the main character. And I think one of the craziest things about this movie is the cast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it had a cast filled with people that became famous later. So there's Jeff Goldblum, there is Christopher Walken, there is Tom Berenger, Nana Visitor, Beverly D'Angelo, and a few other people. Also some older stars like Eli Wallach, and Ava Gardner, and John Carradine. It's a pretty crazy mix of Jerry Orbach is also in this movie.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I think Jose Ferrer was in it too.
I think so, yes.
And Martin Balsam as well.
Yeah, it's like a crazy very cast.
Yeah.
It's a crazy cast, yes. Yeah, also very well made movie, very very good looking movie, well acted. There's some great scenes show when she moves into the house. Oh, also Burgess Meredith also in this movie, and there are a few great scenes. There's some quirky inhabitants. This is a little similar to Rosemary's Baby or what was the one before from Roman Polanski? The Tenant, exactly.
The Tenant, right?
Yes, this is a bit inspired, and there's some very quirky inhabitants of this house. That leads to some really, really crazy, uncomfortable scenes. She has encounters with all those people there. Yeah, great movie. That's it. Yeah, I can only recommend this movie. Yes, it has also almost a little bit of a depressive atmosphere, I think.
It's been a really long time since I've seen that. Probably not since it came out.
I think it holds up just very nicely. This is another one I haven't seen like 10 years ago or something for the first time. And it's a movie I watch almost every year once.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love this one.
Yeah, me too. I'm a big fan, even though I'm not a particularly religious person in my daily life. No. For some reason, I like religious-themed horror films, you know? There's something inherently creepy about it, you know?
And yeah, make good use of that. Also, as I said before, this movie also received some criticism. As I said before, that they use people with real disfigurements in the showdown.
Yeah.
And really disfigured people, and the movie received a lot of criticism for that, yes. But so yeah, they saved some money on the special effects there. I mean, it's cruel but true, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. But yeah, good.
But I don't think it was
I hadn't thought about that movie in a long time. I got to watch it again now.
It's really great. It's really good.
What's your next one, Todd?
All right, this is one of my favorite movies, period. Horror, psychological or otherwise. 1973, Don't Look Now.
Oh, holy shit.
Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie.
Yeah.
Creepy movie. Amazing visuals. Creepy soundtrack. It really keeps you guessing. It's really, it's almost about just, a couple, a parent's grief is really what it's really about, and the horror that surrounds that, like, sort of manifesting itself. And I always was fascinated with the controversy that came with the sex scene between Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie, because of how graphic it was. And then at one point, Donald Sutherland said that it was real, that they actually had sex. Then it came out. Then he took that back later and said, no, it didn't really happen. So it's always been just fascinating to me that people focused on that. But if you look at it, if you watch it, it is very explicit and graphic for 1973, which kind of, it just, gave it notoriety. But I just love it's sort of like a disjointed style. Mm-hmm. A lot of flashbacks, a lot of flash forwards. And then just the ending, is really a gut punch. I won't give it away. Everybody should see this movie. Again, not just as a horror film, but I personally think it's one of the best films ever. It owes a lot to Hitchcock. And the director, Nicholas Regg, admitted as much, that Hitchcock was a big influence. It's a little bit long. It's almost 2 hours, but I highly recommend it. I can't recommend this movie enough.
Well, 2 hours, that's short compared to some of the running times now.
Yeah, I guess, but, we also live in a short attention span era today.
That's very true.
Quick edits, quick cuts, I call it the MTV, style of directing, because people have the attention span of hamsters.
Yep. Mm. Well, my number one, I had a couple of possibilities for it. And I chose The Witch from last year as my number one.
That's funny. I almost put that on my list, Scott. Almost.
If we're going to cross paths somewhere, I thought it might be that one.
Yeah.
It was going to be that, or it was going to be The Eyes of My Mother, another movie that came out last year. And I opted for The Witch because I think I like it a little bit more than Eyes of My Mother. But, when you talked about the MTV generation and the quick cuts, this is the antithesis of that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if there's a criticism about this movie, and there are, the main one being is it's slow. And I don't feel that it's slow because I got involved with these characters, even with the difficult language that they used. Old English or whatever it was. It certainly doesn't roll off your tongue very easily. And it's dialogue you actually really have to pay attention to. But I think that's what drew me in, because you had to pay so much extra attention to it. At least I did. And I love that. Now, I think the ending is a little bit hinky. I'll be honest about that. The last couple of minutes I thought were really kind of hinky, but everything up to that point I absolutely loved. It's beautifully directed, beautifully shot, a lot of themes going on and a lot of layers going on with the characters, and it just didn't get any better than The Witch for me last year.
Yeah. You know how much I like that movie, Scott? And it really makes me crazy when all, like, the horror snobs came out and said, oh, it's not really a horror movie. Nothing ever happens. Well, if you don't think that that's a horror movie, I think you need to reconsider all of your life choices. But that's just me.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I've watched that movie several times since it came out because I really do enjoy it. It reminds me of the old devil worship movies from the 70s. It has that kind of a feel to it. So you get Black Phillip. You can't beat that. Talk about creepy.
Absolutely.
So, what did you think of The Witch, Steve? Did you see it?
I haven't seen it yet.
God bless. You have to see that one. You really do.
No, I will. I've been recently rather been focusing on audio horror movies for an article I'm writing.
Yes.
So, yeah. But I will come around. I don't. It's not going anywhere.
No, not anymore. And you don't have to wait until it shows up on TV or anything like we used to do. So there's that.
Yeah.
One quick thing I want to talk about before we go, and that is the news came out this week that the Friday the 13th remake or reboot was canceled.
Yes.
And there was much rejoicing. But there was also another, the Hellraiser, the latest sequel. While it's finished filming, it has no release date. And in an interview with the director, he said, "I have no idea when it's coming out. I'll probably be the last one to know." And I think there was another remake or sequel that has been put on hold. But
World War C? Yeah. World War C too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it makes me want, is Hollywood finally getting the hints about horror movie sequels anyway, that maybe they're not quite as lucrative as they used to be?
Well, again, I think it all depends. I don't think remakes are really going anywhere, but I think they just couldn't get it off the ground, couldn't find a direction for it. I do find it funny that all these so-called horror fans who cry all the time about lack of originality and lack of anything new are now they're crying about the remake. They basically want a reboot that's a carbon copy of the previous sequels. So you can't win no matter what you do. There's just there's no pleasing anybody. So screw them.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little petty, but I also feel like some schadenfreude about the failing of the reboot of Friday the 13th. It just tells you that they have no clue. I mean, this time, this movie was in development. In the 80s, they would have churned out 7 sequels,
Yeah.
Jason would have been to the moon and in love and whatever. And in the medieval times or whatever, I don't know. But this is just, I mean, it's not that difficult to make a Friday the 13th movie.
Right, exactly.
It's really hard to cross. I don't know. I don't get it. I really, Todd said, I agree with Todd. I have no problem with remakes per se. But I really dislike the Platinum Dunes remakes a lot. I think this is a style that isn't in the slightest fitting for horror movies. They shoot action movies, horror movies like action movies.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad they are moving away now from those horror remakes. Also, I think I heard the Halloween reboot may also be dead in the water. And I have no problem with that either.
Yeah, you know what? I really don't either. The Friday the 13th movies were never really what I would consider classics. They just, really were never really very good. They served a purpose, which was, they were date night movies. That's really kind of what they were. And, fine for what they are, but I'm not broken up that there's not going to be another remake or a reboot or whatever they're choosing to call it this week. So, screw it.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go, I should make mention that Dee has a article up. Well, he's got a lot of articles up on the website, but the newest one is the best, worst songs about fucking. So go on over to the Supernauts website and check that one out, because that's a lot of fun. That was a really good article, and it's got some interesting comments on it too. So.
Yeah, true. Expectedly, yeah.
Yeah, you can pretty much guess what the comments are like, and you wouldn't be wrong. But he once again shows what a good writer he is, and it's really it's a fun article, and so check that out, and check all the other stuff out on the website. So, thank you, Dave, for finally coming on after 2 years.
Yes, thank you very much.
Fun.
Yes, thank you, and my pleasure. Yeah.
And it won't be another 2 years before you're on again.
Okay.
Definitely not.
Hopefully
We'll do some sequels. Shameless sequels.
Okay.
Well, that's a good one. So, all right. So, like I said, check out the website, supernauts.com. Check out the other podcasts that we have, including my other podcast, Jerry Janda, Weekday Matinee, and a brand new podcast that we'll be recording in a little bit. Mad as Hell. It's our look at the news of the week with myself, Todd, and Kyle Fulton. So we are taking some of the news out of the Imaginarium, since people kind of bitched about that to me, and putting it in its own show. So if you want to hear Todd, Kyle, and I bitch about everything that's going on in the world, we have a show for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And until next time, may all of your journeys be filled with pure imagination.